Good afternoon and welcome to our Connected CMO lunch webinar series. So today we're going to talk about the new marketer and how they're new, they're improved, and they have extra power, like we used to say in the old FMCG marketing days. Now, the role of the marketer has changed a lot in the last few years, mainly because there is a lot more of science, and to the extent that often you feel that it's crowding out the creativity. um, so let's take a look at what makes a very successful modern marketer today. So the marketer circa 2017 has the ability to track consumer preferences at the individual level. So, you can track your data and you know exactly what each one of your customers want. And what's even more exciting is that we can actually customize our offerings as per these preferences. So we can, it's not just about the products, we can also create services. You can tailor the price, the look, the feel based on historical data that you have. Now, the other thing we can do, and which the marketers of old really could not, is that using analytics and customer data, we can predict purchases. And so this means that based on historical data on, whether you bought a pant and then a week later you went and bought a shirt, I can actually say that a person who buys this is going to buy, the next thing in the next 1 week. And so I can, pretty much start gearing up to sell you that item, both from a supply chain perspective as well as pinging you with offers or the newest styles in this space. And if you have larger ranges of products or data that we can use, then this gets even more sophisticated, saying that, for example, a person who just bought this in a grocery store is likely to buy wine, and the person who buys wine is likely to buy cheese. And if you put all these pieces together, it's a whole lot of information. But what's really exciting is that it doesn't have to be sales. It could even be seen as a service where we are helping our customers reduce the friction of purchasing by saying, look, you always buy these 5 things together. Why don't I just make it a bundle and send it to you every month? So this is something that an old-fashioned marketer also did probably 100 years ago, where your local grocery person just said, hey, I know you buy sugar every week. Let me just send it to you. All that's happening now is that we're using technology to do the same thing on scale and in a much more large scale and, shall we say, personalized rather than personal manner. We can also do on the fly pricing strategies. You would have all heard about this thing that people who access through, say, iOS tend to spend more. And there was this story about Uber that they can tell the battery charge on your phone and price things accordingly, though they said they don't. But the data is available to marketers. What they do with it is based on their understanding of what the customer is expecting and what they can do to add that to the product mix. But this is certainly something that is coming in where we can segment our customers and change pricing accordingly. So, if the person has battery charge or if he's just run out of money on his wallet, we can change our pricing strategies accordingly. We have a huge variety of communication options. Digital allows us to do real-time changing of communications, print, outdoor, wireless, direct, context sensitive, and everything is in real time, and the marketer therefore has to understand real-time communication. And of course, we have really, really sophisticated tools to listen to the customer. And this is an important point because often there is a temptation to say, hey, I've got so many tools and I want to keep talking to the customer, but we also need to take time out to listen to what the customer wants. And again, even sensory data, IoT data can really help us to do that. Sorry about that. Yeah. So, how can marketers make a mark? So there are a number of ways in which today's marketers can really stand out. In India, we're blessed in some ways that there are so many categories with low penetration. And so we're not dealing with a saturated market in many cases, but it's really more about educating the customers and converting the latent needs to product choices. There are so many categories that are new to India: olive oil, masala, oats, diapers, blenders, anything to do with you know leisure and a higher disposable income. All of these are new to India, and marketers can make a mark by launching these and educating customers and addressing their needs. The other new format is a purchase event. So we've had Independence Day sales, Republic Day sales. Newer ones are Akshaya Tritiya, Karva Chauth, and now the online portals have all created their own sales festivals. So as a marketer, there's a huge amount of opportunity to create an event and own it. And whether it's a Flipkart or an Amazon, they have actually created dates in the calendar that are now part of people's shopping experience. Much like the old midnight sales, or the RD sales, or whatever used to be. So there is an opportunity as a marketer to create these. The third area, huge for India, is hyperlocalization. And Patanjali is a brand that has grown on that, but even a Danone has come into India and done really well by looking at regional flavors like Mishti Doi, Masala Lassi. Paper Boat, of course, is one that plays largely on traditional tastes and nostalgia. And then larger players like an ITC, for example, have ranges of no garlic, no onion, and it's marked that way on food in Gujarat. So again, given the vastness of our market and the fact that it's very underserved, there is huge opportunity for hyperlocalization. And of course, like every other market, once a person has bought it, we have to look at new products and variants to keep um, consumer interest going, and that's very important as well. Just give me 1 second. So the consumer segments are exploding hugely, again, because we were, for the most part, a scarcity market, and it was one size fits all. So we had one TV for the family. Often people shared the same clothes, the same chappals. You just had one school bag, whether you were a boy or a girl. But now, with higher disposable income and higher aspirations, again, marketers need to understand the many, many consumer segments that are opening up and can be served with customized products and services. So youth is definitely one segment that's growing, and in terms of having access to income. Then we have women who are again growing in power in terms of spends. Senior citizen silver spenders is a pretty new category in India, and it will continue to grow as affluence continues, and pensions are include some amount of disposable income for many. The newly affluent, again, has very different aspirations and needs in terms of what it wants to do. I mean, as a country, we also have nuances in terms of, if you look at tier two towns, they would prioritize um, luxury items that can be seen outside, like a car or a sofa, over even upgrading on food. So, as an affluent person, newly affluent person, you really want to show that you've arrived, and that's a huge opportunity. Health conscious, again, very new in India, but growing hugely as a market. So, any range or any vector of health conscious. Nuclear families are slated to continue to increase, and again, their needs are different. Plus, they generally have a much higher disposable income, and they also tend to spend more on the children. So that's an opportunity for marketers. the illiterate, the semi-literate. Many of them have now gone digital because they can use a voice-enabled cell phone search. They can use a lot of videos to educate themselves on products and services. WhatsApp has proved really big for the semi-literate and the professional classes. So, what can we market to them? What can we use? And then, of course, the luxury consumer, the aspirant, the value seeker. Again, the Indian luxury consumer is different. They really do seek to upgrade themselves, but more from a value or a longevity perspective than just a brand possession desire. So that makes India different. And what would really make a successful marketer is one who took the trouble to understand the variance and perhaps to identify an underserved segment and launch a product that could serve that little segment. So, what are the marketing trends that the new age marketer needs to keep an eye on? So, one, of course, is customer centricity. As we move away from being a scarcity market, it's very important the consumer now knows their rights and are demanding it. And obviously, with social media, they also have a channel to make their unhappiness known across segments. But it's also a perspective change for marketers that we're putting the customer at the center of the experience. Previously, I think marketers did look a lot more at the sale piece and managed the sale process to be good, but we tended not to really look at the service angle or the ongoing sales angle. But today, more and more marketers do need to look at the customer journey as a whole and put the customer in the middle and say that what does they want, what do they want? Because again, with the internet and the free flow of information, it's very difficult for a bad product or a bad service to survive outside of a monopoly today. The second big trend is, of course, anytime, anywhere, and this is a very, very big change dimension for most companies because a shop would shut, a factory would shut, but today's market is always on, and that means that your whole organization actually has to be on anytime, anywhere. Omnichannel is not as easy as it seems because we have to recreate the digital experience offline or vice versa, and the customer's expectation of what is digital and omnichannel keeps on changing as new and newer models keep coming into them. So that's a big change, and often the company has to revisit its entire customer journey from this anytime anywhere perspective because the whole sales, the after sales, everything has to change around this. Third big trend is, of course, media fragmentation. You can now reach the long tail of the internet one on one. All of that is very possible, but it has a downside. So when you do aggregation or you say that I just want eyeballs, then you don't really control where your ads are seen, and that is important for a marketer to keep an eye on. But the big plus side, of course, is that we can sell to ever smaller segments and you can slice and dice your audience by demographic, language, geography, anything. It's just huge potential to reach people. The fourth point is social commerce. And of course, this is a huge space again where we are relying on social media for sharing word of mouth and actually completing the transaction on the social media channel itself, which is very different because, again, here you do not control the entire experience, just a little bit that you are part of. But, it's a huge potential upside, but also if there is one little error, then there's a huge potential for a downside as well. And how do we manage that? How do we de-risk ourselves from the channels that are available is the other question again. And then we have the cross-functional customer ecosystem. So previously it was marketing and sales, but today you may have to deal directly with customer service, you may have to deal directly with supply chain. So there is a vast range of people who are involved in making it successful. So, when do marketers rock? So, first is to understand that marketing is not sales. It is really about satisfying a need to enable a product to sell itself. And that's what makes a good marketer. It is not really lead gen. It is genuinely creating a campaign or a service or a market product that is so good that the customer actually sees it as a service and not as an interruption, or someone's trying to sell me something. It really has to feel like, oh my gosh, they thought of it and I would really want to pay them for this. Marketing is storytelling to create anticipation of the consumption moment and then prolong the delight. So we have to create the moment, we have to prolong the delight, and more importantly, do we have a proper story to tell? And that's often the bit where the creativity comes in, where we understand all the data available to us and then weave it together somehow into a compelling story. The third role of marketing is to create customer advocates, and this is even more important when you think of social commerce, and provide a platform for your happy customers to share their experience, thereby enabling the product to literally sell itself. Marketing is a science of pricing. We have to understand the science of behavioral economics and of consumer research, product design. So these are all, pieces of marketing that even 10, 15 years ago you didn't really have to know that much, but today I feel that marketing is far more of a science than an art form, and therefore if you have to succeed you really have to understand all of these elements. And lastly, I mean, marketing is the voice of the customer, and we have to challenge our organizations to embrace customer centricity. And perhaps if you're not a traditional, if you're not a digital first organization, if you're a classical traditional organization, then this is a pretty tough challenge for you to meet, because it could entail investment, it could entail a redesign of your entire sales, delivery, and customer service process. So this is actually a huge space, and it's important for marketers to own it, because otherwise, like the role of the chief customer experience officer or the chief digital transformation officer, these are all elements that are very crucial to the bottom line, and a great opportunity for marketers to show that they actually bring the skill set required to realign the organization around the modern digital enabled customer. So the modern marketer actually looks like a combination of Picasso and Einstein. He really does need to be creative like a Picasso. He needs to have innovation, experimentation. And remember that Picasso was a classically trained artist. His dad was an artist, and but yet he always challenged the status quo and found newer ways to do things. So marketers have to do that as well. And then if you look at Einstein, again, really brilliant, really innovative, but very data oriented and very, very perseverant as far as thinking through and saying this can't be this way, or we have to look at things a different way. And today's marketer really has to be left and right brain. It is not the last resort for people who don't like maths or don't like science, because it actually requires you to be really good at both of those. So I think that's a great step forward, because traditionally marketers have felt that they don't get a seat at the board table, but now that there is far more data and measurability in the role, it's far more possible that marketers can actually show ROI and therefore be considered for the corner office. So I think it's a great step forward, but as marketers, we then have to constantly educate ourselves and look at it from a scientific or a tool based approach, which perhaps was not true in the past. So thank you so much for joining me today. And if you have questions, you can put them in the chat window and I will reply, or you can mail me and I shall mail you back. And of course, these entire series is brought to you in association with Microsoft, and we're very grateful to them for their support. And you can find more information on our Connected CMO page, which you can look at. And my contact information is here if you want to mail me to find out more as well. So thank you once again for joining us, and it's been lovely having you. Bye-bye.